what on earth am I meant to talk about? That has been a question that I've been pondering through a bit of imposter syndrome, but then also through over researching and procrastinating this particular process about me creating my own content. But it is something that my clients have asked me over and over and over again, is what would I talk about though? If it was me in this particular scenario where I'm the expert in XYZ field, what do I talk about? Now, when a client asks me that question, I find it easy to talk about because I've had years of experience creating content for people, but also working in the further education industry. So it's about time that I take my medicine and I start creating content myself to demonstrate who it is that I am, what it is that I do, and what it is that you could achieve for yourself. Because those particular elements of what I've just reeled off is how I believe you should be creating content. Now, my personal favorite method of creating content is about conversational content, because I believe that the conversation is the content. Now, whether it is that you're talking to camera like I am now, whether you're just simply talking into a microphone and you're having the conversation with the viewer, or whether you've got somebody sitting on the other side of you, 2 or 3 other people in the room, and you're having that back and forth and exchanging ideas and taking that conversation further than just a solo entry and just the thought process of that person in that particular one-on-one conversation, as it were. Now, the way that I go about helping people to find out what it is that they should be talking about is through the process of, first of all, trying to understand who it is that you're talking to. So for me, in this particular series and the set of resources and content assets that I'm generating at the moment, is talking to you. Hopefully you, the business owner or the expert who's trying to find a way to build more trust with their ideal audience. So having got a who in mind, the next thing to think about is how on earth are we going to reach that person? Where are they spending their time? The whole idea about creating content is all about giving you the opportunity to reach as many people as possible in that particular category of who it is that you want to talk to, your ideal audience. You might have heard that before. But where do they spend their time? Are they on Instagram? Are they on YouTube? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they a lover of podcasts? Where is it that they spend their time? And then once we've figured out where they spend their time, we can then think about, why on earth do you want to reach them? Is it to get more sales? Or is it just simply to build trust and build a bit more of a presence and authority in the space that you happen to be working in? Now, I've worked in the learning and development industry for over 10 years. Firstly, I was an assessor, and then moving into the online learning element of that particular business. And it's taught me a key piece of information, and that being that people aren't going to be hanging around for the fluff. And what I'm trying to say is that you need to get to the point. You need to know what it is that you want to say. I spoke to a load of business owners the other day where we were talking about content creation, and they said, I just find it difficult getting into that video. I find it difficult starting to be able to reach what it is I have to say. I feel like I need to say hello, and I need to introduce myself at the start of every piece of content that I'm creating. Now, it might be that that's techniques that people use to start to warm up to the idea of talking to the lens, like I am now, talking into a microphone, if they feel like they're just talking to themselves, for example. Hi, my name's Liam, and I help people to create conversational content. If that helps you get over that initial strangeness and that initial barrier of starting being able to speak about what it is you happen to say, then fantastic, say it. But then cut it out before you actually share that piece of content in the wider context. You'll notice that at the start of many of the videos that you're likely to be watching, many of the shorter reels or the longer form YouTube videos or the podcasts that you listen to, quite often there's not that fluff. There's not that, hi, yeah, I'm here today and it's not very sunny. It's a little bit chilly out there and thankfully it stopped raining. People, in the nicest possible way, aren't there to listen to you talking about that. They're listening for your expertise. They're listening for the point that you're trying to make to them. So we really don't want to waste people's time. Now, when I worked in the national training provider where we were delivering apprenticeships for a whole range of different subjects, what we knew is that people's time was valuable. They were already doing a hard day's work and then they were going on to do some further study and to work towards their qualification. They didn't have the time for the fluff, for a corporate message. Great example of this is if you've got the opportunity to fast forward an advert, you're going to fast forward that advert. So we need to try and create a way of being concise to get to the point so you can feel like you're offering that person value. And then the whole goal of creating content, for, especially to my mind, is yes, hopefully to making sales. Yes, hopefully to reaching as many people in that right target audience as possible. But the most important thing is building that trust, building that likability, and giving you the ability to do that over and over again. Now, how do I approach this and how am I going to be approaching this? Because you might have sensed a bit of hesitation there. It's because I've recorded many, many videos, but not necessarily pressed publish too often, which I'm getting out the cycle of now, is I'm thinking about how can I create content that can turn up over and over and again. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about a news event right now. If I was a news channel, great. But what you'll probably see and what you'd probably notice if you went onto one of those news platforms is that if you're talking about something time sensitive, then that will serve a purpose for that period of time. But if you can talk about something that doesn't change, something that is going to be correct over and over and over again, then that is what I would be creating, and that's what I'm going to be creating from here on in. It's a little bit of a trick that I had from the learning and development world, is that if I was training somebody, or later on when I become the products manager and creating the online learning experience for people, we would use videos. Because if the video is correct, then it's something that we could ask students to watch and it would be correct over and over and over and over again. So if you're able to review the frequently asked questions, and instead of having that conversation 50 times a week with your potential clients, if you got that as a piece of content, you could have it on your website. You could have it on your content development platform, whether that be Instagram, whether that be in a podcast, whether that be on YouTube. You could have it out there so people can self-serve and hear what you have to say about that particular question or that particular thing of interest that people are looking for. And that leads me on to say that, you know, even if people aren't following you, they are looking for content to help them make a decision, to understand a bit more about what it is that you happen to do. A great tool for you being able to identify things of interest for people is Google, or search engine of choice, but I'm pretty sure most people are going to be using Google these days. You're just typing into that search bar whatever it happens to be. And then the other good thing about Google is that it starts to give you variations of what you're typing in. So it can help you with some ideas about what it is that you happen to want to talk about. Another thing that I learned from my days in the learning and development industry is just thinking about how you're talking to people, not trying to go over people's heads. Oh, I feel really smart because I've used an acronym or I've used a posh Latin word for something that nobody understands. The better way to do it would be to think about speaking in plain as English as possible, to not get people making them feel like they're out of the loop, or there's some kind of mystical thing that they're not aware of, or they've got to do some research to be able to understand what on earth you're talking about. Trying to speak at the level, on a human level, to people. Not only will this give you the ability to start to build some rapport, because I'm sure I know that there are many, many people creating different videos, podcast episodes, short form, long form resources about creating content. I know that I'm not the only one. However, for some people, I might be the person that they choose better because they feel like they relate to me better. For other people, I might not relate to them at all, just simply from the way that I talk. So being able to talk to people in as plain English as possible, but also as you, as that person. People are attracted to you and your personality and how you interact. So trying to become a performer is not the way that I would recommend people going when it comes to content creation. You know, I've seen quite a lot of posts when I've been doing my own due diligence and research about this particular industry, about, you know, acting up on camera. And I think, you know, the Mr. Beasts of the world, where they're doing these amazing, fantastical things, absolutely, there's a bit of showmanship there. But I think when we're thinking about our businesses and we're trying to talk about what it is that we do and who it is that we help, if we can do it in a way that represents us in the best way possible, then fantastic. You know, people are using AI more and more and more and more, and that's not going to go away. But I think more and more people are looking out for, is this AI? Am I talking to a person here? When you get through, if you've ever phoned up one of these phone lines, and if you get through and you hear the automated response, just press number for this, say this particular, or tell me what you're calling for, and it tries to think about what you're calling for, and it doesn't recognize what you happen to have said. How frustrating is that? Equally, if we used AI and just simply copied and pasted what it happened to say, it might be technically correct. But if you were then to meet this person, if they were to ask you the same question and you couldn't answer it, it's going to make you look and feel silly, but also absolutely destroy the confidence that that person happens to have with you. And the last thing that I would say that people sometimes overlook is using examples of what it is that you've done and what it is that you do. I've just recorded another video, which I'll link at the end, about a case study of where I've helped a business be able to reach people who are ready to do hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of business with them. And why they were successful was because they were able to give examples about the results they were able to achieve. All really simple, about 6, 15 to 20 minute podcast, audio only episodes. And they were able to build that level of trust, demonstrate that level of expertise, but also the personalities who happen to have recorded the conversation, the two-way conversation, sometimes three-way if they had a client in there as well, was just able to create some real evergreen content gold for them, because once they'd made it once, it was an asset that they could use over and over again, prompting people to go and listen, taking a quote and repurposing that into a static image or something for a newsletter, etc., etc. Anyway, I hope this has helped you to answer that question of what is it that you should be talking about when you're creating content. I hope this has helped demonstrate some of my expertise, knowledge, and passion for the subjects, and potentially create a relationship with you on the other side of watching this. If you stay this long, consider subscribing, because, you know, that will do wonders for my ego, but also tells the platform that I'm somebody that you like watching or listening to. And yeah, I'd love to hear any questions that you have. So be sure to drop those below. But until next time, I'll catch up.